everybody. We're back. Me and Josh. We don't have Brent with us today, so but you have me. So I think that's a win. We are here to introduce the second part of the massive Joel Hoekstra interview, which was freaking amazing. For those of you that are, weren't privy to the conversation to sit in with it like we were, Joel's awesome. Josh is awesome for pulling him in. That's awesome. Everything's awesome. I'm down.
It didn't take much to get him to do it. He was more than willing to talk about his Night Ranger days, and I think he enjoyed it as well.
Yeah, I think he does. He truly does. I think you can tell by the conversation we had, as our conversation carried on after the recording. He just, like Eric, he was, I think they enjoyed talking about that stuff. So.
Yeah, especially Joel, because he's got so much after Night Ranger. Most of the times when he's being interviewed, it's probably Whitesnake, Trans-Siberian Orchestra, to where Night Ranger is maybe just a couple paragraphs. So,
yeah,
I know he enjoyed talking about his time in Night Ranger, and it was great getting that information. That's what's great about the podcast, is we learned just more about the little parts of Night Ranger history, about how he came to be in the band, how he basically recommended Christian to the band. Their first show was together for each of them, and we learned a little bit about Tristan Havakian. I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing his name correctly, but about how he filled in for Joel a few shows. So I didn't even know that, and was never posted on the page. No one else has posted anything about that. So, just little pieces of the Night Ranger history we learned in that interview. So that's what's great about doing stuff like this.
Yeah, the one thing I wish I meant to touch on, and you get wrapped up in other things, you forget, and I didn't make a note of it, but I believe the first time Brent and I saw Joel was like Batesville, Indiana, something like that, Metamora, Indiana. They did a street festival.
Mm-hmm.
So at the end of the street was this giant stage, and I thought Reb was still in the band, and when we got there, I was like, "That's not Reb Beach," and I think Brent knew it wasn't Reb. I think he knew, but he goes, "It's Joel. I think his name's Hoekstra, but I don't know much about him." I think that's right. Yeah.
I think I saw Joel with Kelly Kagi. It was kind of like a scrap metal show, but it was in Nashville, where you're at now.
Yeah.
In March, they have I don't know if it's really a festival, but they have a thing called Tin Pan Alley.
Yes.
And it's a songwriter convention, and they have different events at different clubs throughout the city. And scrap metal kind of did the rock portion of it at a place in Nashville called Mercy Lounge.
Oh yeah, I've been there.
And I think that's when I first saw Joel. He wasn't in Night Ranger, but he was the guitarist playing with some of the guys. And scrap metal wasn't scrap metal yet. I think that's the first time those guys got together.
Okay.
And then they became scrap metal. It was Kelly Kagi on drums, just one of the Nelson brothers.
Yeah.
Mark Slaughter. It was really those three. And then they had a couple people come in. Like I said, I think it was Joel. And then they had songwriters come up and perform with them, which was like Kip Winger came up, Alex Call, who co-wrote Jenny, 8675309, and the guy that co-wrote Wings of a Dove or something with Stevie Nicks. And anyways, but that was the first time I saw Joel. That was probably like 2005, 2006, somewhere. And now he's in Whitesnake.
He's doing okay.
Yeah.
He's all right. I do hope part of the excitement of being down here in Nashville is I hope to be able to take part in seeing as many of those little shows like I can and be a reporter. I'll be your man on the street.
Yeah. And
take my Mr. Microphone down there.
And you're still not too far away from, if you're willing to drive, you're not too far away from even Chicago, St. Louis. Even, farther south, Atlanta and stuff like that. So,
yeah.
Knoxville.
I'll definitely be doing that.
Memphis, so.
Yeah. So, so have you got any feedback yet, or any thoughts do you have on the first part of the Joel interview?
Well, we got a lot of views, obviously, from Joel sharing it and people outside the Night Ranger world. And just from who I've talked to, I haven't been online a lot. I think they enjoyed hearing kind of like the stories of him growing up and the Night Ranger stuff. And if you enjoyed that in the last episode, you're really going to enjoy this episode because there's a lot of cool little information that comes out during the interview with him on the second part. But yeah, I mean, overall it was positive, and I think people, just enjoy hearing Joel talk about his career from really start to finish. And it's great hearing those stories about, I like the story where, hey, I'm going out to the East Coast to do this gig, basically. I'm going to put my stuff in storage for a month or two. I tell my students I'll be back in a month or two, and then basically you never come back because your career is starting to take off. So it's fun to hear that kind of stuff.
Yeah, it is. I think it's cool that he's still doing lessons,
Well, yeah. I mean, especially to have that to fall back on during these weird times. But it's one of those things that it sounds like he's always enjoyed the teaching and the learning aspects. Yeah. So just probably comes natural.
Well, I was thinking about this the other night after we were done talking to him, and he was talking about doing lessons and how he only has so many openings. And could you imagine going back to the early 80s and being able to go online and get lessons from, like, I don't know, Randy Rhoads?
Yeah.
It's like, yeah. I mean, most people would just be like, I can't believe I'm talking to Randy Rhoads, or I can't believe I'm talking to Joel. And he's giving lessons.
Well, just like, think of.
I've got guitars behind me. I should take lessons from him because I'm not a guitar player, but I would just feel so dumb.
Well, just think of, technology-wise, where three yahoos like us are able to basically video the three of us, in what, 3 different states?
Yeah.
So, yeah, technology.
It's awesome.
Yeah, it's, before...
When it works, it's great.
Yeah. Before you know it, we'll be, hey, Joel, you able to teleport to Ohio tonight? And...
do a hologram.
We'll all be like, remember, what did we do before we could teleport?
Before flux capacitors, what could we do?
So
I guess there's still probably not much news, is there, in this pandemic world we're living in?
It's been a slow week. Nothing on the Night Ranger front. Nothing on the. Nothing on each of the members. Nothing. So
just
obviously Brad's still working on the solo album, and from what we understand, they've signed that deal with Frontiers for the next Night Ranger album. We know Eric and Kelly have been throwing ideas together, so we'll see. But nothing new in the last week since the last.
You haven't reached out to anybody you might know personally to see if there's any information with the Brad Gillis project.
Well,
I don't want to lead anything.
Nothing new. I mean, there's a ton of songs they're working on and just putting them together. So,
all right. Anything going on with the? I guess we should address, if anybody's watching this who isn't a member of our Facebook page, you want to talk about that for a minute, and then anything you want to talk about with the page?
So we may have already referenced it, but if you hear us talking about the page, we have a group page on Facebook, Fans in Motion Night Ranger Tribute. So just go to Facebook, search it, find it, click join. And that's really the nucleus of everything that we kind of do. The podcast just kind of branch off from that. So, yeah, just go to the page. We're always sharing different Night Ranger collectibles and stories, and it's a very active page. A lot of good people on there. So, track it down and hit join.
I love seeing. I mean, people posting their concert ticket stubs and their memories and their T-shirts. I'll mention a name here real quick. 2 reasons that Brian Layton. We'll do Brent's job since Brent isn't here. Brian Layton is I think a newer member. You may be more.
Yeah, I think so.
He seems new to me. He told a great story about him and his wife in a Night Ranger show. If I remember correctly, I think she wanted to go and he didn't, and now he's a huge fan, which is awesome. This is going back to in the 80s. And then he also, I'll tie this in with him and new music. He brought up the Colin Blades CD, which I've never had, and I commented on that, and a lot of people came in and said, hey, you should check it out. It's really good. And I don't know if you have any recollections of it. I'm sure you probably have it in your collection, but this is what I love about the pages, because there's stuff I forget about. I mean, I'm a fan. I'm nowhere near, I think, the fan or collector you and Brent may be, but I just love this band. But I get to see great people having the same memories that we have, and Brent and I have been sharing our whole lives talking about these great shows. But yeah, the Colin Blades, though, so we can tie that in with new music and member engagement.
Yeah, I mean, I think that CD came out in 2005. There was the official release, and I think there might be a couple CD singles, and I think maybe he released like a 2-song single EP maybe later on down the road. I can't remember exactly. But yeah, he toured with Goo Goo Dolls, I think, in the summer of 2005, where he opened some shows for them. As far as the music front, I don't think he does that anymore. He has done some work on Jack's solo album. He may have some backup vocals maybe on Shaw Blade's Influence, and he did co-write High Road off the title track there. But he's more of an artist now. If you go to Instagram, I think that's where he does most of his stuff, and you go to Colin Blades, or type in Colin Blades, or however it works on the old Instagram, you will...
And you're saying like a painter, right?
Yes. I'll try to hurry up and find it real quick. There he is, and there's his work and everything, and I'll post something up. So it's really unique looking stuff, and he has different galleries and stuff in L.A. I mean, that's where it was at one time. I'm not sure exactly now, but so... Yeah, he's still an artist, just not musically, more, painting and stuff like that. So
very cool, very cool. Well, anyway, fans in motion, people that are watching this for the first time and don't know anything about Night Ranger, that's Jack Blade's son. And if you like good music, as apparently I don't know yet, but I'm going to pick it up and check it out. Also, we could talk a little bit about when it comes to music. Joel's CD, his solo CD. 13, I think. Is it called 13?
I think he kind of names the band Joel Hoekstra's 13, and the album is Dying to Live. And you're going to hear us talk about this album a lot in the second part of the interview. When we first all started talking, months ago when we started this podcast, one of the topics we talked about were like solo albums, and I told you guys this was near the top of the best solo albums that any of the band members have done. It's a great album, just start to finish. It's good music. When I bought it, I wasn't sure exactly what to expect, because his previous solo albums were instrumentals. Now, they all came out before he joined Night Ranger. This comes out in 2015, and I was just blown away by it. It's great songs. The vocals on there, Jeff Scott Soto, Russell Allen, and Vinny Appice on drums from Black Sabbath and Dio. Tony Franklin on bass. So,
and it's the lyrics are good. It's melodic. It hits all the right spots. If you're a fan of Night Ranger, you'll like this CD. There's just no doubt in my mind. I was the one who was really slow to get up on it, but as I've talked to you off the recording, I've been listening to it when I'm down here opening boxes in my cave here. I usually have my AirPods on, and I'm just getting... I mean, the Russell guy, he's got a great Dio quality to his voice, and it's fantastic. And, of course, Joel's, phenomenal on the guitar, and Appice on drums. There's not much you need to say about that. Just drop his name, and if you're a fan of metal or heavy music, you know who he is. Tony Franklin, I think, was in The Firm, too, if I remember correctly, wasn't he?
Yeah, he's...
Back in the day.
He's one of those guys who was,
been around.
Been in a lot of bands.
And everybody knows Jeff Scott Soto. I didn't mean to skip over him. He doesn't do a lot. He does, I think, 3 songs on it, if I'm correct.
Well, I'd have to look. I thought he did a little bit more than that, but I couldn't tell you right offhand.
But phenomenal.
Yep. The first, you have everything like you said. You have your melodic songs. You have some stuff that's really heavy, some stuff with really big choruses. I mean, it's right up there with Somewhere in California, Don't Let Up, High Road. I mean, it goes right up with those albums. It's really good, and you can see, or you can hear how some of those could have been Night Ranger songs. And we talk about that a little bit in the interview, and he actually presented them with a couple of the songs and so forth. So, yeah, definitely, if you are looking for good music and you're, hey, this year sucks, there's nothing new, and you haven't picked this up yet, you're behind in the times,
Go for it.
Order it from Amazon. You can go to his website and I think get a lot of his solo CDs for like $9.99.
Sure. And probably signed, aren't they?
That I couldn't tell you.
Yeah, I know he's got a lot of signed merch, but yeah, I mean, like you said, if in a time when there's not a lot of stuff coming out, it's great. Go back and see what you've missed.
Mm-hmm.
Might do a little mind blowing stuff,
But yeah, Joel Hoekstra's 13, Dying to Live, and you'll hear in the interview that he's working on the follow up to that.
So we've already done the member stuff and the page stuff. Is there any new stuff that you want to talk about before we move on to Joel?
We talked about this in the last episode. I stated I received it. Couldn't find it. The Rock Candy remaster of Don't Tread.
Yeah.
So Rock Candy is a record label that will take these type of albums, remaster them, sometimes include bonus tracks, and they will do an excellent new booklet. Usually they're anywhere from 10 to 12 pages. They will be an interview with band members or someone associated with the band, producers and everything like that. So this has Don't Tread remastered, and it has the bonus tracks of Where Are You Going Now live and High Enough live. And what is great is I think they interview Michael Cardelloni and Ron Nevison, and just little things where they talk about how they didn't like the mix of the guitars on the first album, so they brought in someone new to mix the guitars on Don't Tread because they wanted the guitars to be a little bit more up front. But yeah, they interviewed Jack Blades in here. I'm just reading. I shouldn't be reading, but
now does Nevison produce this album also?
Nevison produces it,
but they brought in someone to help fatten up the guitar sound.
Some of the mixing. They didn't like how the mixing was.
Right, different engineer.
So actually, Jack Blades is interviewed a lot in here. They said they did no pre-production for this second album. They basically just went in and done it live, kind of.
Yeah, I'd love to know that process.
They talk about how John Kalodner was really important on this record.
And then they don't do any lyric sheets, right?
No, but here's something. I should have read this before we freaking did this. There was one song that had to be abandoned as unsuitable for this album, although it would later emerge in a different context. So there was a song written for this album they didn't use.
They don't tell you what it is?
They do.
Oh.
It ended up being on Hallucination. Shaw Blades' Hallucination. It was a song called I Can't Live Without You. The last track on Shaw Blades. So
I need to go dig that up.
Yep. So they tried to make it into a Damn Yankees song, but it never quite fit. So, and in here they talk about how they did the album cover. They talk about how the album's released and grunge and everything and was going on. So yeah, Jack Blades is the last 4 pages is just him talking about this, and he kind of reflects on the album. Tommy Shaw actually comes in and is interviewed here too about the album. So they do a really good job with these. I mean, they're almost worth the booklet alone. But Rock Candy, they have remastered the first Damn Yankees album, now the second one. They have remastered Shaw Blades. The first Damn Yankees has the bonus track of Bone Stripper, which is originally on the Nothing But Trouble soundtrack. Shaw Blades does not have any bonus tracks on it. So, yeah, that's new. And then I've just recently just picked this up. It's been out for a while. Well, it's been out for 5 years. Uh, this Icon Greatest Hits of Night Ranger. It's the same tracks off of Greatest Hits. Different running order. There's really nothing in there except for the Dawn Patrol era photos.
Yeah, photos. Yeah.
It was like $4, and I did not have it, so to complete the collection, you got to do stupid stuff like that. So.
Yep. There you go. I have nothing new to add because I'm still living out of boxes, and if you can tell behind me, I mean, I got nothing.
Well, the only thing I could add is
I got a Tommy Aldridge videotape I can show again. There you go.
There you
For any
go.
drummer fans out there, that's badass.
The drums at the end of Crying in the Rain and Whitesnakes.
Circa 1980 something.
But I can't remember who the individual was, but we were talking about the Fans in Motion page, and someone had put on there that when they signed up for the Night Ranger fan club, you were given the option to maybe be like given a pen pal. And he was a pen pal with some girl, and I can't remember the whole story, but they pen palled forever, and somewhat friends, and shared stories of Night Ranger and everything, and eventually they kind of stopped writing, and he always kind of wondered whatever happened to her, and he found this page, and then found her posting something.
How amazing is that?
30 some years later, he was able to reconnect with her and everything because of the page. So, kind of cool story. So
that stuff's awesome. Like, I'm sure when you and Brent were talking about this, that wasn't in your wheelhouse of like, hey, we're going to reunite people after 30 years.
Reunited and it feels so good.
We really shouldn't do that at all.
Peaches and Herb?
Sure.
All right. Well, if you're new to the podcast, go click the subscribe button. We release a new podcast episode every Tuesday. Go back and check the past. We've got 12 or 13 episodes. We've talked to Eric Levy of Night Ranger, Greg Eckler, who was in Rubicon with Jack and Brad. We do some deep album dives with Midnight Madness, Dawn Patrol, Seven Wishes, some collectors episodes, stuff like that. So go and take a look. And if you don't have anything else, Andrew, we will...
I don't.
All right.
I was moving something behind me.
Sit back, relax, enjoy the second part of the interview with Joel Hoekstra. Night Ranger makes a big decision in 2011 to record a new studio album. Hole in the Sun, recorded in 2007 with Jeff Watson. It's one of those albums that fans are very opinionated on. A lot of people will say that, wasn't quite the Night Ranger sound. So when do you first get word that, hey, we think we're going to go in and do a new studio album and you're going to be involved? How did that process go down?
I think it was right about the top of that year, as I recall. Because that's when Christian quit, and I was like, why is he quitting now, man? We're going to record an album. We're going on tour with Journey and Foreigner. Bad time to quit. But he's happy, so all good for him. But it was also good. It was great finding Eric in that time, and Eric's just a terrific guy and a wonderful bandmate, and just came in and kicked ass. So, it was probably the top of 2011, I guess. Yeah, probably the top of 2000. I'm trying to when we recorded it.
I think it would probably been maybe late winter, maybe spring of 11. And I think I just got that from when we talked to Eric, and then it was released in late June, I think, of 2011.
That sounds right. I mean, it actually went according to plan. Amazing. Yeah, album released on time. Band goes on to support it.
And so you had a few, songwriting credits in there. Follow Your Heart, L.A. No Name was
great.
Was the bonus track. Say It With Love. How did that songwriting process work? Was it something that you would bring stuff to the band, or is it something that they had that you would add on, additional parts later?
No, I think the stuff with Eric and I had to happen from the standpoint of, and let's get Joel and Eric and we'll all get in a room and jam and see what we write together. That was kind of first. It's those guys write, and then it's like, and then it was just, that's just the way it was. And then we just came in and put together 2-3 songs. So we pretty much all just put those together.
I gotta say, when I first heard Somewhere in California, right away I'm like, oh my God, that's Night Ranger. I mean, Eric captured the spirit of what Fitz did, and Follow Your Heart is a fantastic song. I love what you guys did on the guitar. At the end, it's just a fantastic track. Favorite track on the album.
Oh, thanks. Wow. That's amazing. Yeah. I don't know what to add to that.
Well, it's a terrific time for the band.
Yeah.
And it was almost like a rebirth. I've told this story before. I was in the military at that time. I was in Africa. We were lucky to have internet, but very slow internet. And Somewhere in California or Growing Up in California, the track is released. So I spent like 50 minutes downloading it. And when I first heard it, I was like, oh shit, they're back. And, for a Night Ranger fan, it was just, number one, great to hear that track when it came out. And then to get the album and just 1 through 11, just killer songs. You and Brad just, doing the twin guitar solos, just like we'd all grown up on in the 80s.
There was the 90s where everybody was like, initially the 80s bands were trying to like conform and go with what was cool. And then everybody went through the period of what are we supposed to be doing? How do we do this? And then right about that time was when it became cool to just go ahead and be 80s and not really give a shit. Because it was like, it's cool. Like it's experiencing a resurgence. So it was good timing. And I mean, I can't take credit for much of it outside of, I know I could tell those guys how I remember them when I was growing up as a fan, and to say, like, I told Brad, you should never play any other guitar than the red guitar. I remember saying that on the album, like, don't play any other guitar. That's the guitar that you're 100% known for. And that's how people picture Brad Gillis. And I remember telling Jack that with the orange hammer and saying, that's how people remember Jack Blades. Like when you picture Jack Blades in your head, you picture the sunglasses, right?
Yeah.
And the orange hammer bass. And so I remember being able to express that to them. But like I said, I take very little credit for it. I mean, I think that it was kind of what was happening with all those 80s bands at the time, was it became fine to be 80s again.
Yeah. And
can you talk about L.A. No Name for a minute? I mean, was that just you and Brad?
Yeah.
Just kind of messing around? Cause
that's me and Brad, like, partying.
I watched that NAMM video all the time.
Couch getting drunk. I mean, we're...
It's cool. It's great. Instrumentals are just...
with a couple acoustic guitars. And out. And so I think that night Brad would click on voice memo or whatever on his phone and get whatever was cool that we were coming up with, little segments, and then the next day with our hangovers we arranged it, and it became a thing.
Cool.
So Somewhere in California is released 2011, summer 2011. You guys go on tour with Foreigner and Journey, playing all the big sheds around the United States. Number one, that had to be just the thrill of a lifetime, but adding on to it, you also did double duty on some of those dates where you filled in for Mick Jones of Foreigner.
Yeah, I mean, that tour was massive, dude. Broke attendance records all over the place at the time. That Don't Stop Believin', the rebirth was just over the top. It was on Glee, and it was in whatever. I mean, that song was drawing kids to these shows, just massive audiences. And so, yeah, it was a great experience. And filling in for Mick, scary because I had no notice. I mean, I had to learn that set in a day. And we had played Jones Beach, and I got a call from Phil Carson after that show, their manager, just saying like, Mick's not feeling so well, and I might need to purchase some insurance and have you start learning the set. I said, okay, cool. Great. I'm off to party. I just played Jones Beach, and I'm sleeping at home tonight. So went out till all hours, had a ball, woke up at like 11 or something. And, oh, yeah, he said to call Jeff Pilson. So call Jeff Pilson and blah, blah, blah. So, yeah, Phil told me I'm supposed to maybe start learning the set. He goes, oh, nobody's told you? He said, you're on tomorrow night. And this is in Virginia Beach. So I was planning on playing Rock of Ages that day or that night. And then waking up the next morning and taking a 6 a.m. flight, just hop down to Virginia Beach and boom, back in the groove. So all of a sudden I was like, oh my God, I got to find a sub for Rock of Ages. And I told them, get me a board tape immediately. And I think I didn't even get it till about 3 p.m., 2 or 3 p.m. And I was shitting. I mean, I was like, I got to get this set together in like just over 24 hours, plus travel and play with Night Ranger. So the stress level was super high. I remember landing and getting to the hotel room and their tour manager getting Pilson up to my room to make sure everything was cool, sitting about a foot from my guitar listening to me play the set down when I had just learned it. And I was doing you learn when you go to guitar school, practice for 2 hours, take a 10, 20-minute break. And I just kept doing that. I just practiced really hard for 2 hours, take a 10-minute break to just rest my mind, let it digest, get back. And I did that nonstop basically until we went on. So it was scary as shit, though. And, Neil Sean and Arnell and Dean are all over on the side of the stage watching it go down when I went on with them. And the scariest part was being on stage with Night Ranger knowing it's coming. Like, well, my shed time is over. There's no more times I'm playing another set of music and trying to be entertaining and then go backstage, whatever, change the inner pack. Let's go back out. And I played all mixed gear because I wanted it to sound as close to Mick as possible. So I used his guitars and his amps. And
wow.
Yeah, so it's scary shit, but that was all. What a great experience. And fill in for a legend like Mick was, come on.
How many shows did you fill in for?
I think it was 9.
9?
Yeah.
You didn't bust into any Lynch while Jeff was sitting there at all? It had to be hard not to.
Busy worrying about the set, man. I mean, I was saying... that show that night, I think it was 18,000 people there.
Wow.
Put it in perspective, where you're like doing that, plus you got a legend like Neil Sean watching to see is the tour going down in flames right now with these guys, or is this what the hell's going on? So,
and Night Ranger was pretty supportive of you doing that as well.
Yeah, I mean, I think they were supportive of it being like a short-term fill-in and not supportive of it being like a long-term thing.
That's a hell of a baptism, I'll tell you.
Yeah, it was scary.
Well, I'm friends with someone on Facebook where Night Ranger kind of had the same situation, probably not on the same scale, but I went to see you guys September 11th, 2012 in Portsmouth, Ohio, and you guys come on stage, and I'm like, who in the hell's the new keyboard player? And it turns out that Eric Levy was having his first child, and a individual called Brandon Etheridge was filling in that night, and I think he was with you in Rock of Ages, correct?
Brandon was the MD for the touring version of Rock of Ages, and then would sub sometimes on Broadway, so we knew each other from there, and he was a guy that I thought could probably come in and read down a chart and be super dialed, responsible, and get us through it. That was something that I wish we would have planned better, and by we I mean those guys. That was my job to do that planning. So inevitably it came down to everybody going, Joel, do you know anybody? And me going I do. I know a guy. This fucking guy will come in and do it. And Brandon got us through, man. God bless him. So
But so it's during this time period, probably the following year in 2012, and correct me if I'm wrong, where you enter the Trans-Siberian Orchestra world.
2000, wait a second, I need to think. 2009 audition, 2010 join.
All right. Well,
maybe 2010 during the year. Maybe 2010 during the year. So I auditioned twice, got the gig, and a lot of that was from the Rock of Ages TV appearance on America's Got Talent. We were the musical guest. And so I think my first audition, they shot some video, and I'm one of these guys, as much as people think I like throw all my shapes and all that stuff, like if I'm like not playing all alone or like doing these quarantine videos at home, I'm not throwing shapes. That's just stupid. Like, yeah, I got to be on stage at least for effing sake. So anyway, I basically just didn't do a lot of rocking out in my initial audition. And I think that maybe they thought, oh, this guy's like, he can play, but like he's got no stage presence, and so I wasn't getting the call. And then we did that America's Got Talent, and I did a bunch of my stuff. Dee Snider sang with us on there, and I was out rocking with Dee, and then I got an official like second audition, and that's when I got the gig. So first one was with Al Pitrelli, second one was with Paul O'Neill and Al Pitrelli.
So how did I know eventually during the winter months Night Ranger would get a replacement for you for those months. Was the band receptive of that? Obviously they were for a while, because that happened for a couple years. And I know they got Kerry Kelly obviously to replace you during those dates. Was there anybody else guitar wise that?
Yeah, it started out Tristan Avakian, I think, did it the first 2 years, so maybe 2010 and 11, I'm going to say, during that time. And there might have been a time or two in there he couldn't do it, where Reb hopped in again and did like a show. Seem to remember Reb coming in and doing like two isolated shows or something too, to kind of tag team through that. And then I think starting in 2013 was Kerry. Is that right? 10 and 11. No, Kerry started 2012 doing the fill-ins in November, December. So 2012, 13, and then in 14 he joined.
Because I don't know if we knew about Tristan. I think we had, talked about Kerry Kelly being a replacement, but we had discussed it, but I don't think any of us really knew about. I don't know how you pronounce his last name.
Tristan Avakian. Yeah.
All right, so we'll have to.
Yeah, that sounds right.
We'll have to do some research on that, because I think that was a little part of the history that we missed.
Yeah, there's some, like he did Epcot with them. Well, that was one of the years Epcot happened during November, December. So there's some footage of that, I think. And I don't know exactly what all he did with them. I mean, times were a little slower in November, December anyway, thankfully, for most bands. Mm-hmm. Although one year when the first year Kerry came in, I think it was because there was like a big tour. It was with Journey in Canada, I think. And so when Kerry first did it, it was bigger in November, December.
In 2012, you guys release 24 Strings and a Drummer, and I think for a lot of fans, just reading what I see people post on the page, that is where I think you got a lot of that's where a lot of people accepted you. They seem to, when anyone writes about 24 Strings and a Drummer, it's always they're talking about your playing or some of your joking in between songs. And
Sister Christian setup. Come on, man. That's all that anybody talks about. On that. It's like that Sister Christian setup. We started anytime I would do interviews or when we were in the shuttle vans going back and forth to gigs. Those guys loved me doing my Chicago accent, and I would do a lot of it, and we would laugh, and that's just how that was part of our humor together. Those guys loved that Chicago accent, and so somehow when we were putting 24 Strings and a Drummer together, like pre-production, which we only gave ourselves a day or two at Jack's, as I recall, and then we made all these intricate changes and plans to those songs, and it was like, oh my God, I think we're all terrified when we were playing that show, because it was like a completely different show. And we were like, what did we do? We changed every song and made it super hard on ourselves. I mean, This Boy Needs to Rock is like a completely different tune. It was completely that Rolling Stones style, and I mean, we really rewrote a lot of that shit in a way. I mean, it was a lot of it was really different. So, scary gig, but what a blast. But yes, to get back to the pre-production, somehow we were like, maybe we should just, set up a little intro. And when they were droning on that nicely, I came in with it, and everybody just busted out laughing. And then I think it just was, they were like, no, you should do it. You should do it. You should introduce the song. Do it, man. It'll be funny. And we'll go into Sister Christian. I was like, oh, are you guys sure? I tried talking a lot of I was like, that sounds like a really bad idea, man. You know, because like it's like the biggest song, and you want me to be. And anyway, I went ahead and I wung it a little bit, and it was great fun. That was a really accurate representation of our humor together at that time, though. That was how we used to joke around with each other.
And it's definitely a fun time for us fans. We were getting great tours. We'd just gotten Somewhere in California. Now we get this acoustic live album. And a year or so later, we get this, which contains probably, I don't even know why I said probably. Let me rephrase that. It contains the greatest Night Ranger song entitled Mountain Song.
Oh, wow, okay.
And I yell at whoever I can, and at the issue of why is it a bonus track? That should have been on the album to begin with. So I don't really care about the rest of the album. I just want you to talk about Mountain Song.
We put that together when we went. We had a time when we went out to Chuck Brennan had this school in South Dakota that it was like a rock school, almost like a school of rock on steroids, and they were giving lessons there, and they had a live stage, and we did an acoustic show there. Chuck is a dear friend of the band and super great guy, and we basically just like stayed there, did an acoustic show, and then we wrote, and then we had an electric show, I think. So the day we wrote, we were all on this stage together, and that's what we wrote. We wrote the Mountain Song that day. At least the music end of it. I think the riffs, and then I don't know who put together lyrics and melody offhand anymore. I can't remember. But that was the gist of when it was put together.
Well, it's like I said, it's one of my favorite songs. But the album, start to finish, again, it's a solid follow-up to Somewhere in California. Was there any differences in recording High Road as compared to Somewhere in California?
No, not really. I mean, the Somewhere in California, I was at Jack's for an eternity. I remember just living out in the studio he had out there at the time. There's bedrooms out there, and being out there for like a month or something while we worked on that. Just getting until it was like Kelly had recorded, and then it was like they wanted me out there for Kelly recording, not just Brad. So it was like it took some time. Whereas High Road, I think, was more for me. I came out and just did my guitar parts, and then I'd say if I had to measure, I wasn't as actively involved in High Road as I was in Somewhere in California. But it was just time constraints, man. You know, everything going on at the time. At that time, in Rock of Ages, and I had every time. Like for me at that time, to take off for 3 weeks or 4 weeks is like, well, that's that's like $10,000 gone, man. You know, you guys really want an invoice for $10,000 for me recording my guitar tracks? Man, no, hell no. So anyway, I don't know. It was just time constraints, man, and I don't even know that those figures are right.
Yeah.
But that was the gist of. Probably of why I feel like I spent more time working on Somewhere in California. So, in fact, my guitar part on High Road, they said, we're good without a guitar part, but I had them send it to me while I was on TSO, and I cut my guitar part in a hotel room on the TSO tour. Yeah, and that's the only time that was ever done with so it's a little weird that happened.
Wow.
But I remember.
Yeah, there we go. That's why we have the podcast.
Yeah.
Just little tidbits like that. So 2014, you got Rock of Ages. You have Trans-Siberian Orchestra. And you get the opportunity to join Whitesnake, correct?
Yeah.
And so, was it... Obviously, it had to be something that tears you up a little bit because...
Yeah. It's all good.
It's one of those things where you're excited. You're excited on one end. It's a new beginning. It's a new chapter of your career, but you're also kind of shutting the door on another part of your career. Just talk about this time frame a little bit for us.
Yeah, I mean, look, straight up, nothing to do with wanting to quit Night Ranger. Just wanted to play with Whitesnake.
Right.
I mean, that's the truth. A lot of people want to whatever make it into anything else. It's not true. I only just wanted the Whitesnake gig, and that wasn't going to fit together. There was definitely a little change in time there. Rock of Ages was going to be closing too. So although it lasted till I think the end of 2014, I want to say. But that was, yeah, I mean, basically the gist, man. I mean, Whitesnake's got a hell of a catalog. Some historical rock figures in that band, and David Coverdale and Tommy Aldridge, not to mention Reb, who I teamed up with, and some great players. Get out to the world internationally, regularly tour. Yeah,
Tommy.
Yeah, there you go, man. TA.
I've got his drum video. Brent and I are both drummers.
Crying in the Rain. His drum part at the end of Crying in the Rain is
Tommy's phenomenal.
So that was really where I was at. I mean, I knew I had an opportunity there to audition. I did, just not knowing what to expect, and got the gig, and then was like, well, I got to figure this out. But I just looked at it like a good opportunity. That's all.
Well, that was six years ago last week.
Yeah, it just happened.
Yeah.
Because tomorrow night was the first show. I was seeing Night Ranger, and you would quit like 3 days before the show. I'm like, oh my God, are they going to cancel? You know, that was Carrie's first official show.
It was a little before that I actually got like offered the gig. I mean, that was like I want to say it was in May or something like that. So it was essentially a done deal for a little while longer than
really
that.
Just announced it later.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, Whitesnake wasn't going to go out until like spring or summer of 2015. So I was, I was in no hurry.
Also, so you take the gig with Whitesnake, but until that tour kicks off, you're doing some, I guess I'd say, solo work. You did this album here, Very High Frequency, with Tony Franklin and I can't pronounce that last name.
I'll help you out.
So
it's just one name harder than mine in rock.
Well, speaking of that, Joel Hoekstra, I know it's not something that it was bigger in the 70s and 80s. Did you ever think about changing the last name?
Totally, but it just never pulled the trigger. It's way too late now. Yeah. I mean, as the story goes, I don't know if you guys know how Kip Winger talks. Kip kind of did.
Yeah.
When he said to Reb, "Hey man, who got the Whitesnake gig?" Reb said, "Joel Hoekstra from Night Ranger," and Kip went, "Man, that guy should have changed his name years ago."
Well,
first reaction, and he's right. I should have, but it never happened.
Got to do more teeth when you speak like Kip, though.
So
can't get the teeth out.
So I'm stuck with a terrible rock name, but whatever.
Well, here's the one pro that in my CD catalog behind me, Joel Hoekstra falls right next to.
Oh, sweet.
Don Ho.
Doesn't get that going for you.
So you do this VHF record.
Don Ho.
Hell yeah! Every now and then.
Leaky Koala, whatever it's called.
I'm in a great mood. I want to listen to music. I don't have to go very far. I just go to the HO. I got Don Ho and I got Joel Hoekstra. But an album that whenever I talk to people, I tell them this is an album you need to check out. It was terrific. I'm not sure what I was expecting, but I think mainly because most of your solo albums have been instrumentals and stuff like that. I get this album here, Joel Hoekstra's 13 Dying to Live. And if you don't own this album, you may, Joel, but if anyone else doesn't, it's a shame because you need to go out and buy it right now. This was a terrific hard rock album. And it's, in a good way, I won't say all over the place, but I can say, hey, this
you could say, I like that. I like all over the place.
I could see where your Broadway influences are, or this song would be really great for Night Ranger. I know you had said that you had, submitted Start Again and Until I Left You for Night Ranger, and it ultimately wasn't used.
I kind of played. I think I played Until I Left You for them like once when we were in the room, and they just all kind of stared at me, and I was like, okay, next. They didn't like it, and I was like, all right, so on to something else. And then Start Again, I think I was writing over at Brad's, but I think at that, I don't know, it just never. Yeah, I don't exactly know. Like I remember writing that chorus and everything at Brad's hanging out. So, yeah, just.
Well, right up there with Mountain Song is this song.
Uh-oh.
Maybe. We'll get it. Anymore, I thought would be a great Night Ranger song. To me, that's a standout track on that album.
Okay. I hear Night Ranger could have done like a version of the two that I suggested. I don't know that Anymore is a little too like.
Well, lyrically, I think it's a little bit darker than Night Ranger. And I was going to ask you, did you write the lyrics to Anymore?
I wrote the lyrics to that whole album.
That whole album, okay.
That's kind of the point. That's kind of the point of those albums, because I don't really enter into like, now I'm going to play a guitar solo for 3 minutes. It's like, it's more about like, I just wanted to write like good rock songs and make a rock album, because by that time, I mean, you're talking like, geez, this guy's been in Night Ranger and Rock of Ages and Trans-Siberian Orchestra and Whitesnake, and they're like, your solo albums sound like fusion or whatever. Like, what's the deal, dude? You know, so I wanted to put out a rock album. It's just something I want to do anyway.
Well, lyrically, I was impressed. I thought lyrics to Anymore were fantastic. Like I said, I could see it being turned into a Night Ranger song. Maybe Jack singing the verses, Kelly doing the chorus, you know, stuff like that. But are you doing a follow up to that? And if, for those that don't know, it was Jeff Scott Soto on vocals and Russell Allen, on vocals as well. Vinny Appice on drums, Tony Franklin on bass. I mean, you had a solid lineup. I mean, how cool is that to have Vinny from Black Sabbath and Dio on drums?
Yeah, so that's, I mean, the material was kind of constructed around that too, because it's like, all right, I talked to Tony Franklin because we had done VHF, and then I said, who would you want to do a rock album with on drums? He said, how about Vinny Appice? I said, great, that's perfect. That sounds cool. So let's do that. And then just right around that time, Russell Allen joined TSO. Russell does Dio better than anybody, basically. And so I was like, wow, okay, so I kind of got this like Dio on steroids kind of band going on here. So I'm going to write a lot of stuff like that. So like, you know, Say Goodbye to the Sun and the heavier stuff that's on it. It's kind of coming from that place. And then Russ can really sing anything, man. I mean, he can sing like Foreigner, so a couple of the songs that kind of geared in that vein. And then when I signed with Frontiers, and I knew they'd probably want a couple more like commercial songs, that became like Until I Left You and Start Again. And as I was recording the album, Russell had issues with his schedule, with when I was going to put it out and all that stuff. And so Jeff just ended up finishing the vocals on it and put it out with two singers. And I mean, it was a project anyway, so I didn't really care. And if I ever toured, the way I looked at it is it gave me either singer I could tour with.
Yeah. Well, it's a fantastic album. I'm pretty sure it was available on your website. So if you're watching this, go to the Joel Hoekstra shopping mall on the internet and put that in your cart there and purchase it. Around the same time too, we started, I think, seeing some photos of you, or maybe not. Yeah, I think you guys did a show together. You and Jeff Watson of Night Ranger.
Yeah.
Did you two ever interact while you were in the band, or was that something your friendship developed after you had left Night Ranger?
So once again, met him where he was the deity when Kathy Richardson opened for him, just for like, you know, hey, and I don't think he remembered it. And then oddly enough, Kelly, Jack, and Jeff came to New York City one night to do this Sirius Radio acoustic event. There's a bunch of people just doing little mini acoustic sets in this club. And Kelly gave me the heads up he was in town, and I went, and I ended up hanging out with Jeff. So I hung out with Jeff that night long before I was in the band, and so I think we had many drinks together, as I recall. And then we didn't talk the entire time I had the gig until I left the band, and then Jeff wrote me a really nice email that was mind-blowing to get. They're like, really great job. I thought you did so awesome, and blah, blah, blah. And so we became buddies at that point, because I was like, look, dude, I always had so much respect for you, and I would, I never, ever would consider you some kind of enemy because I was in that band or filling your shoes. Night Ranger wouldn't have been what they'd be without everybody's hard work to build it. So for me to hop in 2008 and be able to enjoy what I was doing with them meant a lot of Jeff's hard work, and not that everybody else. I mean, I'm just saying Jeff was a part of building it. So I'd have to be a complete dick not to understand that and thank him and be like, what it all meant for me and what a life experience that was. So we've just always gotten along. And he's got an email thread that he runs with a bunch of guitar players, and we interact on a daily basis, Jeff and I, with the other guys on the thread. And the thread's got some all-stars. It's Steve Vai and Steve Lukather and Steve Morse and Bumble. Wow. And we all kind of email on a daily basis, and it can range anywhere from 13-year-old locker room humor to philosophical discussions. That's pretty cool. Being at least cyber buddies with those guys means a lot to me, and I owe that to Jeff as well.
Well, I think as fans, we all enjoy seeing that, just kind of a meshing of the eras, and it's fun when we did see you guys. I think there's some footage you guys on stage performing together.
Yeah. We had planned like a short little trade-off for that first time we did the Ozzy thing, and unfortunately, Rudy Sarzo was playing bass on the song, and they were switching off. Like Phil Soussan, I think, was playing some of it, and then it was like time for Rudy, and they couldn't get a signal. So Jeff and I were trading these couple licks that we were going to do and kicking over the mountain, and I'm looking at Brian Tishy going, like,
stretch.
Pointing over Rudy, they're trying to figure out what's wrong with the bass amp, and oh fuck, So here we are. Jeff and I were kind of dry on that one, so we went back and forth a lot longer than we probably should have. But we had to. I mean, what are you gonna do? Stop and go? We'll start the song in a minute now.
Yeah.
So we just kind of kept trading. That was a fun. It was very, very stressful again, because it was like those are plug and play events. You just walk out and you're like, God, a lot of people are probably gonna watch this video. I hope it's good. Hope I don't suck.
Well, hopefully one day you and Jeff get to sit down and record something and put something out. I think all the fans would enjoy that.
Yeah, I've gone over to his house a couple times and hung out. We went and like hung out in his area, and when I was in San Francisco on a day off at Whitesnake, and so I mean, he's a good dude, man. I see no reason to not be friends with everybody involved.
So, going back to 2015, after you released 13, you guys, your first album that you released with Whitesnake, the Purple Album, which to me, I was excited because, number one, those David Coverdale albums, Burn and Stormbringer, are awesome, but what a lot of people don't talk about is they always talk about Ritchie Blackmore, but they don't talk about Tommy Bolin enough. So it was cool that you guys actually did some of the tracks off of Come Taste the Band. Just how, and again, I'm going from a fan perspective and putting myself in your shoes. That's got to be awesome that you're actually sitting there recording with the voice, with the man who was there recording the stuff with Ritchie Blackmore and Tommy Bolin. Just talk to us a little bit about that Purple album and that experience.
Yeah, so I transcribed everything off of the original versions and listened to all the original versions, everything we were going to do, because I didn't know exactly how much that David was going to want. He was saying, make it your own, make it your own, make it your own, but I thought, I'm going to know everything anyway, just in case he says, like, hey, but can you play this part that Ritchie played or whatever. So I transcribed it all, and then I played a bunch of stuff and came up with ideas and did the the best I could going in to just lay down some good guitar tracks, man, and just treat it like anything else. So just go in and play the best you can. But yeah, there's definitely a moment where we did Soldier of Fortune, when we did that particular arrangement of it. I cut that live with David at the same time, and pretty much everything you hear on the record is he sang right there when we did it. So that was a pretty cool moment. Like, I'm just with an acoustic guitar, just me and David Coverdale laying down a song, and it was pretty cool. Like, I was like, wow, that was awesome, man.
Well, what David is doing with his catalog is terrific. Doing stuff like the Purple Album, and then doing the box sets of the, some of the 80s albums, and remastering other albums. And then you guys did a live album, for that Purple Album, which was fantastic as well. And then just last year, you guys released your first, I'm pretty sure it's your first true studio album.
Right.
With Flesh.
Original material.
Yeah. Called Flesh and Blood, where you co-wrote 6 of the tracks on there. That had, that speaks a lot, especially with, David Coverdale trusting your...
I'm going to move us over here. We're going to take a little, there's going to be a little, my battery's going to die on the laptop. I was not plugged into a power source over there, so I'm just going to come relocate. We're just going to keep this going.
Well, thank you.
But we were talking about songwriting and submitting songs earlier. I just, for you to have 6 tracks.
I think really 8 songs with David for that, and then but one of them ended up on this compilation, the Rock album, and then one of them was a bonus track. So in total, I think 8 co-writes, but then 6 on the normal version. Yeah, we found our groove. DC's a great guy. I mean, we get on great. I've really had a great time working with him, and I hope there's much more to come. Obviously, I don't want to make it sound like it's over. David's great. He's a really good dude. He's been a great boss, man. I mean, I can't really. It's like, I don't want to say pleasantly surprised, but I mean, we just had no issues. He's a good dude.
Yeah, he speaks really highly of you in interviews.
Yeah,
I've heard.
I mean, that's part of the beauty of joining Whitesnake is David loves to champion his lineups and build everybody up, and that's a great feeling when you're a player who's kind of building a name for himself, and he's a very generous guy like that, definitely.
And were you on? So they released an album, I think, a couple months ago, the Rock album. Was there any material on there that you re-recorded or anything?
Yeah, so there was the one song, and they're always the same, that was sort of a Flesh and Blood, like didn't make the album kind of song or whatever, even though, I mean, it easily could have. That's another Mountain Song story.
Yeah.
But then on top of that, David had me add to Adrian Vandenberg's parts for anything that was released on the record Restless Heart years ago. That was kind of, I don't think it necessarily got an official release here, but I know that it was really, in David's mind, a David Coverdale solo album. So he was going more the route with Adrian of like the Jimmy Page, like a Coverdale Page kind of thing, where they were using like a single guitar, lots of mics on different amps, and kind of widening the sound, but really just kind of single passive guitar and a lot of stuff. And it wasn't a Les Paul. So it's always been like a thing with David. David just loves Les Pauls. I mean, he loves the sound of a Les Paul. So he was like, I think I would love to get you to double everything he did, just super tight with a Les Paul. And then if you hear other parts, go ahead and add them. So that's what we did with Restless Heart. And Derek Sherinian added keyboards on there. So I don't know if he's ever going to actually release Restless Heart with that, but we did that. It was mixed, and then some of those tracks are on the Rock album. So there's, but I did an entire album of doubling Adrian, and
so you did the entire album, and then just took select tracks.
And then he's got, I don't even know how many are on the Rock album offhand, but there's like 4 or 5. There's a video for 1 or 2 of them, I think. But that was, of course, super cool. Double Adrian, and we left. There was no like take Adrian's solo off and I'm going to solo. I was like, no. We're just, I'm going in and just going to like give you your vision of having the Les Paul, but like, we're not going to make this a brand new thing. So sure. I just tried to respectfully do that. for what David was looking for, but stay out of Adrian's way and not make it like I rewrote anything or changed anything.
How did the Cher gig come about?
So David had knee replacement surgery in 2017, and the word was kind of sent out to the band like, hey, no tour in 2017. We'll be recording to keep you busy. So I just texted all my colleagues and was like, if you know anybody who needs somebody to fill in, I don't really need a new gig because I'm still in Whitesnake and I still have TSO. But if you know of anybody who needs anybody to fill in, and so my friend Justin Derrico, who plays with Pink, and he plays guitar one on The Voice, ended up recommending me to David Berry, who is guitar two on The Voice, right? So he played with Cher and needed to take time off, getting busy at The Voice. And so Justin recommended me. He was one of the guys I texted. And so there I was filling in, and then Pink pulled Justin out on a promo tour, and David stepped up and did a lot more there at The Voice and was really busy. And so I ended up doing quite a bit more of it, turned into a little bit more of a full-time situation for a few years.
Wow. So that has to be a totally different animal as well, because you're doing a lot of residencies out there in Vegas, correct?
Yeah, it was like residencies, but then she started touring at the top of 2019 heavily. Is that correct? 2020 heavily arena stuff. Mm-hmm. So anyway, I did what I could of that. 2019, yeah, duh, because 2020 is what we're in. So, my gosh, where is my brain during this quarantine? So anyway, yeah, 2019, I basically did as much of the arena tour as I could do, and that was getting harder because Whitesnake was heating back up, and so as everybody got busier and busier, and it was like, oh my God, the pressure, she was very, very patient with me. I think 2019, I made 50% of the shows, and wow, and she was letting me kind of come in and out, which was amazing of her. So.
Now, were you on the Billboard Music Awards show when she got the icon?
Yeah, that was one of the first things that happened when I got that gig to fill in. And I think it was on that first fill-in. I went out there to fill in on one of the Vegas runs, and then they were like, "Oh, by the way, also doing the Billboard Music Awards." I was like, "Oh, kick ass! All right, right on."
Now, do you do any studio work with her? Is she? No.
She's had a longtime producer, and that's the kind of thing in that situation where you're touring band, you don't even hear about it. So it's like the album's done. Oh, okay. Didn't know she was doing an album. So it's a different world. That world's a different world than Night Ranger or Whitesnake or something where you're on the shirt and you're on the album cover. You're a long way from home out there with a gig like that.
Yeah, but it still has to be, like I said, unique to be playing. A residency at the Monte Carlo in Las Vegas. I mean, that's something you're not going to, get in those other worlds. And
her arena tours were massive, man. I mean, they were selling around the upper deck all the way behind us.
Wow.
There were crowds, 23,000 people, big shows. So great experience. And the band was in the background on a bandstand, and the only time I had 3 times where I stepped out, 2 of the times with her, and once to kind of hold the crowd while she had a wardrobe change. And it was my job to play this little solo and kind of keep the crowd entertained. So, but I mean, to step out there and have the moments where the only time you're going to step out front is with her is very scary, because you're like, God, I'm only out there for like 2 minutes in the gig. And if something goes wrong in those 2 minutes, whatever, more than 2 minutes, out there for like 5 minutes or something, but you're like, God forbid you're the guy who, like, she does different shit every show with where she walks and where she goes. So you got to keep an eye on her, man. It was like, I become known as the guy that knocked over Cher on like on stage or something on TMZ. I mean, it was going to be a disaster. So it was, a lot of it was, try and mirror her. You obviously want symmetry on stage. So if she was going to go stage left, I'd try and cross behind her and go stage right. But then sometimes while you're crossing, she'd come over and sing to you or something. And it was like, oh my God, don't screw up. She's right in my face singing to me right now. And it was like crazy stuff like that. And never the same twice. Always something different.
Well, like when I saw photos, man, I just like that. You would never, I guess Cher was never on the radar, but it was cool to see you doing that. And speaking of not wanting to be a disaster and running into Cher and knocking her down, 2020 has been pretty much a disaster with the coronavirus and all that. And obviously, it's cut into to touring but you seem to have kept just a little bit. But but the one bright spot we've had is in early July, you had a project called Echobats and released a track called "Save Me from Loving You." Talk to us a little bit about that, because I think we all were expecting. I don't know what we were expecting, but we were expecting one thing, and then we get this great
hard rock.
Yeah.
I'm sure.
Yeah, but it's beautiful. It is absolutely fantastic.
The drummer Matt Starr and Tony Harnell, the singer, talked first, and then they talked to me, and they were like, "What would you want to do?" And oh man, I already got Joel Hoekstra's 13. I'm working on a record that's kind of in this very similar Whitesnake, Foreigner vein for that. So I mean, how many of those type albums am I going to put out? So I was like, let's do something different. Let's do like a Queen thing, or let's write songs. I remember our discussion was atypical song form. So we gave Tony 8 ideas, James Lomenzo on bass, and then he really only worked on one, and that was Save Me From Loving You. And that got to the point where he was like, hey, what about putting this out just as a single? And I was like, okay, I'd be into doing that. And at that time I was like, man, it still needs keyboards. Like, it's not enough. I laid a bunch of stuff down, but I was like, I know the perfect guy. And Eric Levy. So I recommended Eric, and Eric came on, played on the song, and then we put the single out, and it's actually still going. It's on the radio right now in the UK, and on the radio in Australia, and Canadian radio campaign going on for it as well. So it's actually got some strength, despite the fact that kind of like you guys all saw the video, and now it's a little under radar. It's actually still moving out there in the world, which is pretty amazing.
Well, it was a fun song, and the video actually was entertaining. It was fun seeing you guys doing the different stuff, and you had your kids in it, and I really didn't think about it, but I had only listened to it by watching it on YouTube. And I don't know, the other day I put it on Amazon Music, where it was the first time I had listened to it without the visual, and it just opened up the song just to a different realm where I wasn't paying any attention to all the visual going on. I was just listening to the music, and it just made me fall in love with the track even more. Are you guys going to do anything else beyond that? Has there been any talk?
I have no idea. I mean, Tony has been in London, and he just came back to the U.S. And I mean, I've said, like, we still have those other ideas, and we could write something else. I don't know, but we'll see. I mean, well, who knows? Mm-hmm. I don't know. I have no answer for that.
And then just recently, that's kind of people have been talking about, is the new track that you guys recorded, which is a cover of the Jefferson Starship classic hit Jane, which it's you, Mike Portnoy, and is it Jalusic? How do you pronounce Dino's last name?
Dino Jalusic. Jalusic. I don't know. He's Croatian. So, however, but I think Dino Jalusic, I say.
Yeah. Well,
I mean, that's not an official. That's Dino. Dino wanted to do a quarantine cover for fun. He's been doing them regularly. So he had Mike on board. I was like, absolutely, that sounds great. Mike and I have known each other for a long time, and I might be the last guitar player on earth he's actually released something with. So, finally, Mike and I jam. I mean, we've known each other for a long time. So yeah, it's kind of like a bionic, like little shred out version of Jane, where everybody just kind of played loose and fancy and had a good time with it. That's not an official release. That's just for fun.
Well, it was being stuck in the house. It was fun to
a very big following, so it gets anything Mike Portnoy does gets a lot of attention.
Well, it was. I love Jefferson Starship, and and Brent. You may not know it. He wasn't a big Jefferson Starship fan, but when they dropped Jefferson and just went into Starship and got into,
I mean, nothing was going to stop me now. Nothing.
In 1985, he was knee deep in the hoopla for sure.
Yeah, but, that probably didn't happen.
He was
Marconi played the mamba. I listened to the radio, but I don't remember.
So what's next, Joel? What do you got? What's on the radar?
Yeah, I mean, I got, the Joel Hoekstra's 13 follow-up. I'm just finishing up mixes, reviewing the graphic arts, trying to do things that people don't realize you have to do, like type up all the lyrics and be able to have them inside. I mean, I'm the guy that has to do that, not like a secretary or something. And I need to type up the liner notes and make sure everything's the way, get all that stuff done, the graphic design, and turn it in. But
there's your cover. There's your album cover right there.
Night Ranger would
probably not have a problem at all with
that. Like, hey guys, does this look familiar?
That looks oddly familiar.
Yeah. So anyway, I got that coming up that I'm trying to finish off. I got several sessions that I got to do right now. I've been getting a lot of people saying like, hey man, you want to play my song and do this and that. And I have a couple more. I'm going to play on this thing called Six String Salute coming up in early September. That's got some big names: Vi Satriani, Rick Emmett from Triumph, Tommy Shaw.
Wow.
And it's a benefit basically for all the local crew members that have been kind of put out during this, all the arenas being shut down and everything. So I'm putting something together for that. That's hopefully going to be really bang up. And then just started talking about doing another quarantine jam with somebody. So that's kind of, I guess, becoming the thing. I did the Bumblefoot one, and a couple weeks ago, the one with Nico McBrain and Jen Majura from Evanescence. So that even though it's 1 minute, that's Jen's thing, having the 1 minute of fun there. So putting that out was cool. And I mean, that seems to work for me, all that stuff. It's good fun.
It's fun for us. I love, guys from Anthrax do it. Everybody's doing it. It's fantastic.
I think the thing to do right now is just try to find ways to do what we do and stay sane and have a good time and hopefully get through all this stuff.
Well, that's the one thing about this quarantine is with no live shows, there's really been no music coming out whatsoever. And I think we need it.
Right. Yeah.
We all need it.
I mean, that stuff is, that's all up to the world at this point in time, when things are going to get back to normal.
Well, you're also keeping yourself busy with, you do online guitar lessons as well, correct?
Teaching the one-on-one lessons. I got right now 31 students a week, just because I like to be, it's like Spinal Tap, one better than 30. But yeah, that's sort of my max is 30, and then I'm a sucker, so it's 31 is really the way it's going. And then doing master classes for Rock and Roll Fantasy Camp. I've done 4 of those. And Rock Stars of Tomorrow, which is a school, did one for them. And anything else with that? I'm trying to think. That might be it with that. But yeah, the master classes, the teaching one-on-one, doing sessions for people, working on my album, got another project I'm trying to put things together for. I'm working my ass off, man, for sure.
Well, it seems like you've done that your whole career too, and that's when we were doing a little bit of research. It just seems like you were never, kind of like how you said earlier, you never really took any time off. You were doing Rock of Ages and just one thing to the other. So definitely, you have talent that gets you to where you've been, but also, the strong work ethic. So it's just been fun just talking to you about this whole career arc that you've, gone from Chicago to New York. And I love hearing those stories. I was going to go to New York for a couple weeks, couple months, and I put my stuff in storage. I'll be back. And here you are in 2020.
I know, 20 years later. It's insane.
Well, you're a hell of a guitar teacher, I'll tell you that. I get to hear little clips from Natalie Shively.
Yeah.
Yeah, her mom's on the page, and she'll email me clips of her daughter playing after she's been being really schooled by you, and she's really good for her age.
Yeah, she's doing great. She learned another instrument first, so it's kind of like when I was a kid, too. She was learning flute, so she understands how to count, and she can hear just because she was young learning flute. She's got pitch, she's got time, so if you show her a riff, she can go there and hear it, and a lot of people can't do that. So, yeah, she's doing great with her lessons.
And if
That's
people
cool.
are interested in your lessons, they can go to your website, right? And you have that information.
You can just hit contact and email me. Yeah, not necessarily like a sign up for lessons per se. I oddly enough, that filled up just like boom. You know, I did one social media post and I had 32 students, and then I think there was like a couple openings like a week or so ago, and I was like, hey, got a couple openings. Anybody want them? And I get another 20 emails, and it's like, so the first couple people. So I think I could push much harder and teach even harder than I'm doing, but that really limits my energy, quite honestly, for being able to do sessions and be able to like still be moving forward with things like quarantine jams. In fact, the Portnoy one, I felt like I could have done better. I was like whooped. It was like the end of a teaching day. I've taught for 6 hours, and it's like, all right, got to get on the guitar. I got to get over there and track this and get this done. And I was like, almost felt like maybe I settled a little bit. I was a little disappointed in myself. Like, man, I should have pushed myself a little harder. I could have done better.
Well, I think you did a fantastic job. Andy, you got any parting questions for Mr. Joel Hoekstra?
Well, I just want to compliment you on one thing. You seem to always be smiling, and I guess you just love what you do. I mean, how could you not, I guess? But do you ever get to sleep?
Yeah, I do get to sleep. I just have a thing of trying to stay productive every day. That's my that's how it works. I think it's a daily philosophy more than it is a lifetime philosophy, so to say. It's just trying to make sure that you're moving forward every day. And yeah, I think because it took me so long and I went through so many grinding times that I just appreciate it more than maybe say the guy who sold like millions of albums when he was 19 years old. Like, it's a different mentality.
It's just the many times I've seen you on stage, and watching videos, you just seem genuinely happy. No matter who it's with, you're just like, I'm having a good time.
Oh, that's just fun for me. I mean, I always say I'm playing with house money, right? I grew up in the suburbs of Chicago where you're not supposed to like live your dreams. You're supposed to go get your business degree at school and get a job as an accountant or whatever.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like, I'm not supposed to be doing what I'm doing. So it's, I appreciate it.
I got real quick 2 questions. I play in a band, and one of my best friends is a guitar player, and he's a big fan of yours. His name is Bob Horton, and he wanted me to ask you, do you have a favorite piece of gear or a guitar that you just really love and wouldn't do without? And then also, of all the gigs and all the bands you've played with, have there ever been any you auditioned for and didn't get?
My Gold Top Les Paul that's my favorite guitar. It's a 57 reissue, and I bought that a few years before getting Night Ranger. I would have to say maybe about 2005, if I had to guess, something around in there. And gosh, I don't know. What was the second part of it?
Well, you played with so many people. Is there a gig or someone that you auditioned for that you didn't get?
Oh, I didn't get the gig. No, I've always gotten the gig.
That's how you should end the show right there. Joe always gets the gig.
Not necessarily, but I've always
the ones you've auditioned for.
Yeah.
That's awesome, man. You're phenomenal.
And most of them always took a second push. Like I said, the Rock of Ages thing, me not hearing back after the first audition, but forwarding on the video of me on America's Got Talent, and then it was like, okay, yeah, we'll have a second audition, and that's when I got the gig. And at first, when I forwarded email video links of me to David Coverdale, I didn't hear anything, and then Phil Carson, who manages Foreigner, knows David and emailed him and said, you should give this guy an audition. And so it was like a second. It's sometimes just as simple as that. And look how that changed the last 6 years, right? Just that one simple thought of like, who knows him? I should be able to get an audition. Like, that's the way I look at it. Like, I'm like, really? I'm not even getting an audition.
Have you seen me play? Seriously?
No, not like that. But just like, we're in the same scene. That's the way I felt. Like, we're in the same scene. I should be again, guitar player plays a Les Paul. Right. So it's not like I'm coming in playing the wrong instrument. So sometimes it comes down to the second effort.
Well, that's awesome. I thank you, Joel.
Thank you.
I have two things real quick before you end it. One, I wanted to say sorry to hear about TSO canceling yesterday.
Yeah.
And 2, craziest road story you could tell on the podcast.
Craziest road story. Man, I mean, I don't know, like, in terms of like,
Well,
are you talking about like X-rated behavior?
Just something that happened that
That's always a hard one.
Hey,
When you're doing what we're doing, there's always something cool and taking it every day. There's all kinds of bizarre situations you find yourself in. I remember, I'll tell one quick one just how weird life can be. But with Rock of Ages, we were on the Tonys, and I remember like literally the night before the Tonys, I was playing in Kansas with Night Ranger. So we were playing in like Shawnee, Kansas. I remember flying back, and they were like, "If your flight doesn't get here, you're playing on national TV." I was like, "Be fine. I'm gonna land in the morning, and we'll be all good." But we were Radio City Music Hall, and they had me take center stage for the opening of the little bit, while everybody in the cast came up behind me on an elevated stage. So they were down under. So everybody went down there, and I had to wait while their commercial break on the side of the stage. And somehow at that moment, I was stuck between Dolly Parton and Will Ferrell. And I was standing there over my Les Paul that you guys just talked about. And Dolly Parton and Will Ferrell are talking. And I'm standing there like, this is like, you can't make this up.
Yeah.
This is like acid material, right? I mean, that's straight out of a bizarre dream. So just where things could take you. And I mean, it's name dropping or whatever, but still, like, what a weird ass moment,
That's a cool story, though.
You, any word on if next year you guys are going to do the Whitesnake, Sammy Hagar, Night Ranger tour? Is there any news on that? Anything rescheduled or anything?
No, I haven't heard any official word on anything from anybody. I think everybody's just kind of waiting to see.
Yeah.
Because setting stuff up right now even doesn't necessarily mean anything. People set stuff up, and it's like, are we good to go? Is it all just like a wave of like, sorry, this must be canceled due to so.
Well, Joel, thank you for joining Three Nerds. We appreciate having you on.
Thank you.
And it's the stories like this that I enjoy hearing, and I'm sure everyone else does as well. And you have an open invitation to come back on whenever you want, especially if when the next Joel Hoekstra 13 album comes out.
Yeah, cool. Thanks, man. I appreciate it. Yeah.
You got anything to plug? You got anything you want to plug?
We covered it, man. I mean,
aren't you also doing the thing where you pay $20 to
Cameo?
Cameo, thank you.
Oh yes, I'm doing Cameo. I know. I kind of avoided it for a while because I thought, isn't that tacky? Shouldn't I just do that for free? Send people
That's cool, though.
Happy birthday. But like everybody's doing it, so I'm like, okay, I guess if everybody else is doing it, I'm okay to do it. Well, I do stuff like that normally. I've just done that for free for people. If like, hey, would you mind giving a shout out to blah de blah, and I would do it. And so now, I guess I'm monetizing now that we're all not touring. I guess.
Yeah, you got to make money
somehow.
Well, Joel, thank you very much. We will end it here on behalf of Brent and Andy. Thank you for joining us, man.
Sweet guys, thank you so much.
Yeah. How about that? Huh?
You enjoyed it so much you got a cramp or something.
I'm cramping up. So I'm drinking this mega jug of water. Yeah, how about that, man? Another Joel. I mean, it's awesome. I was so happy after we did that thing. I was telling people about it. They're all text messaging me. How was it? I was like, I don't know. I didn't talk much, but Joel's amazing. So that's all I got to say.
Yeah, it's fun doing them. He has such a career he's worked with so many people. It was hard to kind of touch on everything. I mean, I think I skipped over Rock of Ages. We talked about it briefly. I didn't get much into TSO. So, but, I wanted that story of, where does the talent meet opportunity?
Yeah.
That's always, I think, a fun place in someone's story. to find that, and we found that when he was with Kathy Richardson, and then I loved in this second part, talking about the career with Night Ranger and going to Whitesnake, but I can't praise the album enough. It was great talking about this album, the Joel Hoekstra 13, with him, and I hope maybe in 6 months or something, maybe we can get him back on and we do just a track by track discussion of that album, or if the new album is coming out by then, if we can do a track by track discussion of the new Joel Hoekstra 13. But
that would be fun.
And I know Joel had fun doing the interview because it's not often he gets to spend so much time talking about the Night Ranger portion of his career. There's most of the interviews he does now is going to be the TSO Whitesnake stuff, to where Night Ranger is maybe just a paragraph or so in the whole interview. So I know he enjoyed being able to talk about his career in Night Ranger, and I appreciate him coming on. It's great that he'll do that even for small little podcasts like us. And just if it's your first time watching us, definitely check out the Facebook page and check out some of the other episodes. And I think next week we are going to do the deep album dive type thing on The Big Life. Yeah, you happy?
We're gonna go deep on The Color of Your Smile, in-depth breakdown of Hearts Away. It's I know. I think we've talked about it. It's not probably tops of a lot of people's albums, but I really enjoy this album. I think Brent and I both enjoy it. So looking forward to talking about it. I just I think as we've talked before when we did our rankings, it was kind of on the downswing of their career, coming off of Seven Wishes. Yeah,
it didn't quite hit the mark. I mean, basically their career had all been uphill. And this is the first time they start, going downhill, and things quite didn't work out probably how they had planned. But every band has had that, and they were going uphill for 5 years. So that's a good little track, and that's but the music landscape was changing.
And if I remember, they still did a pretty good sized tour with Big Life. I know we're getting ahead of ourselves, but maybe we can do some research on that, because I'm pretty sure we saw them at Riverbend.
Usually the tours run if you have a decrease in album sales, the tour will usually decrease the next tour. That's usually how it goes, unless the next album is a hit. So if you've had hit album, great tour, hit album, great tour, hit album, great tour, and the next album is kind of a miss, the tour is still going to be decent.
Got some momentum.
It's just when you do the next album and it's a miss, now that next tour can't really.
Which was the case with Night Ranger.
That's generally how it went. I mean, you'll see, I'm sure there's examples out there where it doesn't, but a lot of times the tours aren't you won't see the impact on the tour
immediately.
So,
let's save that hot Big Life talk for next week.
But other than that, I guess that's it. Thanks for Joel for doing this with us, and
absolutely.
If you got any comments, suggestions, anything like that, leave them on the YouTube page or go over to the Fans of Motion page. But until then, unless you got anything else, Andrew, we'll sign off.
Don't coming from you deep in the bunker in my
I know
in my new city.
All right, everyone, thanks for joining us. We'll see you next week.
Scream! I wanna hear you scream! I'll drag you to the deepest depths, the darkest nights and scariest of scenes. Dreams, tell me all your dreams.